I went to work when I was 10 years old, picking slate in the coal burger. Well, at that time, we were working 10 hours a day, and we were getting 6 and a fraction cents an hour. Well, we breaker boys, we'd have our feet in the chute, and we'd be picking the slate out. Well, the breaker boss would sneak up behind us, and if he'd see a piece of slate coming through, he'd pick up the slate and hit you in the back with it, and hit you hard. And he'd say, pick that slate out, you know. Well, they used to abuse us, actually. Well, finally, we got to a stage where we figured that, well, we was going to strike. That was when I learned my first real political lesson about what happens when you take a position against the coal operators, against the capitalists. Well, the first thing that happened, the union officials came to us and told us that we'd have to go back to work, that we were violating the agreement. We said, to hell with the agreement. We're going to stay out and strike until we get our demands. Well, then the politicians began visiting us and putting pressure on us. Then the parish priest. Well, finally, the coal company did agree to meet with us. And they agreed to raise the hourly pay from 6 and a fraction cents to 8 cents an hour. So we thought we got big concessions today. That wouldn't mean anything. That's only peanuts. But it meant a whole lot to us in our paycheck at that period. Well, this was my first lesson that if you stuck to yourself, stuck to your organization, and stuck together in solidarity, you could defeat them. Besides that, I learned that the politicians worked with the coal companies. I found out that the union officials were working with the coal companies. I also found out that the Catholic hierarchy was working with the coal officials. Here was a combination of the whole thing, you see, that you had to bump up against the whole combination of them. When the coal and iron police would find out who was trying to instigate a union, well, they'd abuse them. The miners figured, well, the only way they could fight back was to abuse them, pay them for what they was doing. So they began to use then violence in retaliation of the violence that was being used against them. This kind of a struggle went on to such a degree that there was many of the mine foremen getting killed. There was many of the police getting killed. And of course, there was many miners getting killed. And it was a regular guerrilla warfare. This was some of the early ideas of guerrilla warfare that developed out of that kind of struggle.